Imagine a world where you can be anyone. Go anywhere. Do anything.
Humanoid AI robots are taking over the city. You need AI, but AI no longer needs you.
The artificial intelligence created to protect us detonated a nuclear warhead in Los Angeles.
We are seeing ongoing cyber attacks across the country.
We have unconfirmed reports of a large seismic event off the California coast, with reports of power outages across the United States.
19 states have seceded.
The United States Army ramps up activity.
The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well as the Florida Alliance.
The three-term president assures the uprising will be dealt with swiftly.
Welcome to Raised by Giants Premium Content, episode number 1. This is only for the YouTube channel members and Rokfin Premium subscribers. You can become a Ryder Rangers member on YouTube and help support the show monthly and get 2 premium episodes a week with video, or you can just sign up for Rokfin Premium subscription, which is triple the price of a YouTube channel membership. Though with Rokfin, you get everyone else's premium content on the platform. It's up to you, but $4.99 for 2 extra shows a week is a really good deal. And you not only get those episodes that no one else gets, but you also help support the show monthly and help support my work. The links are in the description. If we could just get 100 people that would sign up to be a member, that would make everything a lot easier. But thanks for your support and viewership. It means a lot to me. So with me on this adventure is author and host of the Secret Teaching Show on Ground Zero Radio, Brian Gable. How's it going, my friend?
It's going great, Ryder. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, I thought that this would be a really nice conversation to have because we already talk about a lot of different things and we talk all the time privately. And I thought, oh, hey, well, how can we do this so that everyone can watch and listen? So really looking forward to you being on this journey with me, my friend. Appreciate it.
Yeah, every conversation we have on the phone off air turns into a show anyway, so you might as well record it.
That's what I thought. I was like, hey man, I should just be recording all of these audio conversations because they get super deep. What I kind of wanted to focus on here today is this idea of reptilians, because there's so many different reptilian lore. It was really made popular by David Icke in the mid-90s, and then it just kind of took on a life of its own because it's a really fantastical thing to think about, right? People always want to blame somebody else or something else. They want to blame reptilian overlords and they're eating children and drinking blood, and it's all this deep underground bases of groups of giant, huge reptilian beings, which we're going to get into here a little bit with another alien story that's very reminiscent of other alien stories that came out last year with the mall in Florida. But first, I want to get your thoughts on this whole process of the reptilian brain and how does the reptilian brain work and what does it mean to have a reptilian brain?
It's a really good question, and I think one not asked or answered very often or ever in ufological circles, Ryder. So to keep things very simple, there are some people that believe that there is no reptilian brain, in the same way that there are people that believe there's no such thing as planet Earth or space or the Earth's flat or something to that effect. And a lot of other people just kind of assume, well, there is a reptilian brain. So mainline science would tell us the reptilian brain is the oldest part of the brain, and it's the part of the brain that everything else was built upon or evolved on. And I think that basis and that idea has certainly influenced a lot of different areas of interest, both spiritual and religious, and of course, evolutionary scientific areas and fields of interest and study, because a lot of people in ufology and New Ageism, if you will, say that humans were created by aliens. You know this as well as anybody else. Ancient aliens really popularized the idea even more recently over the last decade or so. And that is, I guess you could say, sort of true, because if the rest of the brain developed in subcapacity from the reptilian brain, then I guess the reptilian essence is partially responsible for the evolutionary development of man, or the creation and evolutionary development of man. I think creation and evolution can be one and the same thing. That's a separate issue, though. And then there's also the interpretation that aliens created us completely, and you could look at the reptilian brain from that same point of view. It's not just that we evolved from some alien creation or experiment, but that we are, all of us, every single one of us, every part of us, our brain, our bodies, everything is the creation of a very powerful alien intelligence. And also, it's interesting because God, by any definition, would be alien and not of this world. But I don't think that's a literal thing that we should believe. I think that's a little dangerous and reckless. So that's the reptilian brain. The reptilian brain is the seat of your emotions, just like the spirit is the seat of your emotions, and the soul is an immaterial part of you. But they are all still part of the same you, just different layers and different levels of the you. So if it is the seat of emotions, that means it is what controls anger. It's what controls when we are sad, but also happy. So it goes both ways, happy and sad, angry, and also when we're not angry and we're just kind of neutral. Or it controls, if you will, things like organization and compulsions and instincts. It controls instincts. So if we're under the influence of our instincts all the time and we don't think about things, we just do things instinctually. Some people might say that's a really positive thing. Other people might say that's a negative thing. You should be aware of your instincts and can override those instincts. And I think that both ways that we look at it are neutral. I think that both ways are both correct and incorrect. I think instincts are important, but of course you can rely so heavily on instincts, you sort of lose conscious awareness of what's happening in the world around you. So anyway, that's the reptilian brain. And when you extrapolate that and when you expand from the internal to the external, you find some of the same elements and aspects of the reptilian brain, which is, if it's the oldest part of the brain, it's in the deep recess of the skull, which is dark. So you have this reptilian essence in the dark, hiding, ready to strike out like the Urius serpent on the forehead with the vulture, which is materiality and flesh of the Egyptian headdresses. And so you find the serpent everywhere in the world. You find the serpent created the Australian Aboriginal, the rainbow serpent. If you look at the Nagas in India, part of Asia, look at the white dragon or the dragon in general in China and also in Japan. If you look at Quetzalcoatl in Central America, if you look at various other deities, iguana gods, etc., all over South and Central America, the Hopi Indians in North America, North Central North America, not to define things by today's borders, but like North American Indians have snake dances. The Hopis are famous for the snake dance. You have the Serpent Mound in Ohio. You have Medusa in the Greek mythology. The Scandinavians have a giant sea serpent called Jormungand. Leviathan in the Bible, the serpent in the Garden of Eden, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. It's all over the world. Every tradition, mythology, religion, every psychological analysis that we could apply in the Jungian sense to the world, or the Joseph Campbell analysis, if you will, that we could apply to the world, would show us that since the serpent is everywhere, it would make more sense, and since the reptilian brain is the basis of the brain and our development, it would make more sense to look at these things and to show how they are representations and symbols and myths and motifs that don't relate to some kind of extraterrestrial presence creating humanity, but relate to an understanding and a symbolizing of the world in ways that are meant to reconcile the differences between the conscious and the unconscious. And the best example of that is, in my opinion, the best example is St. Patrick in Ireland. You know, Ryder, St. Patrick sends all the serpents out of Ireland, right? Well, he probably didn't wander around with a stick saying, like, get out of here, serpents, and physically getting rid of serpents and throwing them off a cliff into the water. The serpent is a symbol of the pagan world. And St. Patrick, at the behest of the church, got rid of the pagans. So that's a great example of the symbolism of the serpent, which can represent and symbolize a lot of things. In the Gnostic tradition, the Demiurge and Aldebaoth are these distortions of creation. And that's what we would call Satanism today. We would also say people that are in Japan, they would say evil is crookedness. We also say, criminals are crooked. Evil is an inversion. Devil lived, inversion, evil live, or evil can be EFOL, which is an inversion of love. So that aspect of trying to look at these symbols and trying to look at the psychology of it and the conscious and unconscious and subconscious and trying to reconcile what all this stuff means, it makes more sense, I think, that this is an internal inner space battle. And then we externalize it and we anthropomorphize it into real physical alien beings. Now, that doesn't mean that aliens don't exist. For some people, fine, we can have that discussion later. But I think where a lot of this reptilian stuff comes from throughout history, it has to do with the reptilian brain, the reptilian instincts, something that every single one of us have. And no, that does not mean that I am a reptilian or possessed by a reptilian, although the rest of you are too, because we all have that same brain. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that is my assessment of the reptilian situation. And I think last point, and I brought this up on the last show we did, and I wrote about this in my new book, Garden of Hallucinations, on my website, thesecretteachings.info, is that Revelation talks about the dragon giving the beast power. The dragon is the red dragon or any dragon. The dragon is the reptilian brain instinct, and that gives power to the beast, which is the animal self, to act in a certain way. And if you slay the dragon, you get the gold and you become a refined individual. So that's my assessment of the reptilian question.
Well, it's interesting because America, the word comes from the root word America, derives from the word Ameru, which is an Incan word that means double-headed serpent that dwells underground. Ameru is believed to be capable of transcending boundaries to and from the spiritual realm of the subterranean world. And in Native American origin, it also means serpent and symbolizes the fertilization of earth. And it's said that all life is written in Ameru's scales. And then there's a group called the Meru, which Meru, originating from Kenya, which in their group, the word Meru means shining light, or the shining ones, or children of the shining light, which is also really interesting.
Like the Jinn.
Yes, and means land of the serpent. So people can argue with me on that all that they want. They can take the official line that America was. What is the official thing of America?
America Vespucci.
Yes, that guy. They could say that it was named after that guy, but it's just a coincidence that Ameru sounds very much a lot like America, and is a serpent that's supposed to hold all the knowledge of the universe in its scales.
And likewise the caduceus. And if the serpent, which is the medical symbol, and the serpent that holds all that knowledge in its scales is, I think, equivalent to the basis of life, DNA, right? The two serpents, the double helix, and that is, of course, the genetic code. That is the code of life. That is the knowledge. That's what builds everything. So that symbol of DNA, and then the caduceus, and then the mythology of serpents that contain all this knowledge, it is something that has been around for a very, very long time, and it's in all the various caduceus-like symbols, which we find the entwining of the two from India to China to the Americas. The Aztecs had their own version of a caduceus. The Chinese had their own version of a caduceus. Sometimes it was two dragons, sometimes two snakes, sometimes two people. But yeah, I think that's what it means. I think it's like DNA. It's the code of life. It's the knowledge on the scales of the serpent.
Well, the Hindu religion believes that it symbolizes the Kundalini serpent going up the spine, and the caduceus is I'm sure you know about the Kundalini energy and the thought process behind what the Kundalini energy is. But they say that all of your energy is stored in your lower chakra, and that's if you believe in chakras and the energy points of the body. But they say that the energy is coiled up in your root chakra like a snake, And then you're supposed to move that energy through the energetic centers of the body, which is the chakras, and then it goes up to the crown chakra, and then blows up to the right side, which then you can set at the right hand of God. Is set at the right side of God is the Kundalini energy going up your spine and blowing out the right hemisphere of your brain.
Well, that's the serpent on the tree that tempts you with the fruit. And a lot of people, obviously, throughout history, have thought that the fruit in the Garden of Eden was sexuality, was the sexual temptation. So you have the underwear, fruit of the loom, right, and the fruit of your loins, and down there below in the lower chakra, the serpent is there with the fruit, offering you this temptation of pleasure and materiality, right? So
I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's the tree, right? And then it moves up, and then you get Golgotha, the skull, where Christ was crucified between the two thieves or hemispheres of the brain. Your body's a temple, Corinthians.
Wow, that's a mind blower. I didn't even think of that. Fruit of the loom. It's got an apple on it, right? And it's in your
Grapes.
lower chakra. Oh, is it grapes?
It's grapes and apple and some other stuff.
It's a Mandela effect, bro. I know it was an apple. Okay,
it was just an apple. I thought it was a peach or a banana or something.
Mandela effect, bro. They're messing with the timelines, dude. I remember an apple. Okay, I'm gonna go dig through all my Fruit of the Loom underwear.
People that remember a papaya or something, a watermelon.
Yeah, that one lady on TikTok is absolutely convinced that was never Fruit of the Looms.
It was vegetable of the loom. That's what I remember.
Vegetable of the loom. But then she's also talking about all kinds of other stuff too, like Sex in the City is no longer called Sex in the City. It's called Sex of the City, I think is what it's called now, but they just changed the title. They're not trying to hide that they changed the
it was always Sex and the City, I think.
Well, it was Sex in the City for a really long time, but then they changed it to Sex and the City because they did like a reboot of the classic characters, and it got bought by Max. But she's trying to use that as a Mandela effect thing. But whenever you look it up, you can type in Sex in the City on Google, and they'll tell you why they changed the name to Sex and the City. So it's not they're not trying to hide anything or cover it up or act like it was never Sex in the City. It's just they changed the name because they did a little reboot of it, and they wanted to make sure that the show still stayed, dedicated to their original idea with the HBO reboot.
Well, this is a weird thing too. That's also why, just in relation to sex, that's why sex sells and sex is used in advertising. It's like this base primal thing, right? And you could make this association. So you have the serpent symbolism within the genitalia as well, which is the fruit that the serpent offers you.
Which the fruit is pleasure.
Fruit is pleasure. And of course, it's not that pleasure is a bad thing, because pleasure comes in many forms. Pleasure is also the, eating and laughing and having children and like all the pleasures of life, maybe learning something. I get kind of a high off of learning something, but those are all the pleasures of material life. And that comes, of course, with pain. To offset it, you have to understand one to have the other, right? And that's God and the devil, that eternal battle, that Mithric Persian Zoroastrian battle between darkness and light. The eternal concept of good versus evil. But yes, like it's the pleasure of life. It's living, because Adam and Eve are cast out of the garden. And that I've always interpreted that. I wrote a new book on this, Ryder, called Garden of Hallucinations. I interpreted, not that I'm saying that this is the case, it's an interpretation, but I interpreted the garden as kind of like an ayahuasca-like experience, because that's what a lot of people see. Gardens and serpents and humanoids on trees and fruit and animals and half like therianthropic beings. And so you're cast out of that state of consciousness into into this state of consciousness. So the fruit is the pleasure of that material life that comes with pain, as well as it does that pleasure. So you're not in total bliss and unaware of things like you would be in the garden, where Adam and Eve didn't know they were naked until they sinned. And that's also
Yes.
the coming together is the yin yang, or the yap yang in India, the yab yum, and that's the caduceus, the entwining of the serpents to produce, which is also on the Baphomet image of Eliphas Levi, and people think that's evil, and it's not. It's drawing consciousness upward into the divine, but it's another issue. Go ahead.
So if possibly Adam did eat the apple, maybe he then discovered that he can attempt to procreate without the divine instruction from Archangel Michael, and then discovered the orgasm, and then they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden into the realm of Earth, because it's talked about how the Garden of Eden was never really a physical place. It was in the fourth dimension, which is
It's in
you saw.
the mind
Yeah.
or beyond.
Yeah.
And all of that, again, the serpent on the tree, the fruit of your loins, the serpentine qualities of the genitalia, and then all of that moving up the tree, which is the Kabbalistic tree as well, from Malkuth to Kether, and then all of that moving up the tree, and then Christ is crucified at Golgotha, which means skull, and that's the skull, that's the temple, that's the hemispheres of the two thieves, the two hemispheres, and then Christ is crucified in the middle, the center path, which would be, you could say, the third eye between the worldly eyes, and that takes you up and beyond to heaven. So, and you can play around with this theme, and there's so many interpretations of it, but at the root core of it is the serpent, and the serpent sure is a symbol that for most people has become a very negative and dark symbol, unless you're in the East. In the East, it's obviously a symbol of wisdom, and it can be destructive, of course, but it's a symbol much more of wisdom and knowledge and things like this. But the serpent symbolism is something that we find everywhere in the world. It's both creative and destructive. And I think it has to do with the sexual organs. It has to do with the reptilian brain. And then in order for us to, I don't think anybody's doing it consciously, but in order for us to really, I think, grasp these concepts over time, we tell these in stories where this information is preserved in like an encapsulated little nutshell. And today, the modern version of that story is reptilian aliens created us, and they have sex with us. So the sex theme is big in the reptilian alien world as well. They created us.
Reptilian sex orgies, bro.
They eat you. They bring you back to life. They have sex with you. They eat you again. Not eating out, like they eat you. They eat your whole body, and then they bring you back to life. Some people claim so. Yeah, it's all that's the thing. That's interesting too, because I actually never thought of that till right now. The whole reptilian created humans, it's all sexual in nature, just like the Garden of Eden story. So I think it's a modern myth that we've created, in my view.
Absolutely. And then when you look at the caduceus too, it could be describing duality here too, like the angel and the devil on your shoulder. You have the two serpents on each side of you. And then when you think of, well, if the Garden of Eden wasn't in a physical 3D dimension, and then they were kicked down into this 3D dimension, that would mean that they were a thought form to begin with. And in order to create something, you have to think about it first.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's when they realized they were naked.
Yeah. So whenever they were kicked down into the third 3D physical incarnation is when all of these things really started flooding in. And the duality aspect of this is really, well, wasn't there a couple of people in the Bible that had staffs? I think it was Moses. Moses was definitely one of them that had a staff and turned it into a snake.
Oh yeah, you think of the bronze serpent. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he turned it into a snake.
That story. Well, oh no, I'm sorry. You're thinking of the story of Moses and Aaron and the Egyptian free my people, the Egyptian story with the slaves. So he's having a battle, if you will, with the Egyptian magicians, and they can mimic a lot of the things he's doing, and then he turns the staff into the serpent, and the serpent eats the serpents of the Egyptian court magicians, the Pharaoh's court magicians. That's the story I think you're thinking of.
I think there was another one, because I think Aaron had one as well. Maybe it was just a rod or just a staff, because Aaron was Moses's brother, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how you're bringing up the genital areas of a male being like the serpent, being like the snake, and then the genitals of a female being like the open mouth of a snake. We also have different forms of that in our modern day reality too. We also have like plugs, goes into a socket. The plug is the phallic and the socket is the receiver. So we have to plug that in. They're merging, they're coming together to create power, give power to your device.
That's science. And the verse you're thinking of, it also might be, and I looked it up, the book of Numbers. Numbers chapter 21 is the story of Moses and the snake that the Lord commands him to make on the staff. But yeah, everything is phallic, and yonic is the other word, phallic and yonic in that way. And all that relates to the reptile. And again, I think that's that we've created this modern mythos. It doesn't mean that it's like, I think people hear myth and they think, well, that means it's not true. No, I mean, Troy was a real place, and there are plenty of places in the Bible that are real places because they were, the stories were written from real places. And then there's parables and metaphors and allegories, and myths develop out of things we don't even think about. I think modern ufology has become its own myth, as Carl Jung said that as well. And I think we can extrapolate what he said about UFOs and put that into the same, or put the reptilian story into the same category as UFOs in that way. And then you find that, if you were, I've not done this, but I've talked to people who have, and of course there's a large amount of research on this, even like clinical research about, DMT and ayahuasca and all those things and what people see. So we don't have to talk about that in detail, because I think most people have an idea of what you see in those altered states of consciousness, even if they haven't done it. So when people maybe are experiencing a little bit too much DMT production, or they've taken some drugs, that's not to dismiss the experiences, but these things are real experiences that people have had. And so maybe they go a little crazy, not to mention the fact that people are highly influenced by pop culture and highly influenced by things they want to believe. You navigate to things you want to hear about and you want to believe. And so all that gets into the unconscious mind. And then maybe you take some drugs, or maybe your body produces too much DMT or something to that effect. And then you start to see the reptilians. And it's just a manifestation of what you've created, or it's a manifestation of the DNA and the reptilian brain are serpents. So that's the base foundation of how we process reality, and the processes by which our reality is physically, and our bodies are physically created in form. It's all through the serpent symbolism. So it's no wonder people see serpents in every aspect and facet of life.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at in episode number 1 was, what we take on is, what we believe and what we regurgitate. I just had a gentleman on my show the other day that was a methamphetamine addict, and he had several spiritual experiences. He said that he was communicating directly with God, and who he personified as Jesus Christ on meth, and of course I have a different opinion, because whenever drugs are involved, things get so wacky, but it changed his life in that way, and he was able to make a better change for his life, and he's been clean and sober now for 8 years. So it's like some of those things can help you make a positive change in your life, and you can go down a different path. He was talking about how he basically had a choice. He was like, well, then he used the example of Satan and Jesus, of course, as a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, well, I can either go down this super dark road, or I can go down this positive route. I can either take the devil, I can either take God. And then that goes back to what we were talking about, these two serpents and this duality, and the angel and the devil on your shoulder. You have two different paths that you can take. And then there's also the center path that people talk about, like you were talking about with Jesus and how he's crucified in the temple. Mm-hmm. and which is the third eye. He took the center path,
The Quran, the Quran actually says that too, about Allah and the center path. Like it literally says that. And it's like this, That's like the centerpiece of like most philosophies and religions. Buddha walked a middle path. It's like balance. It's balance between extremes, objectivity.
Well, we're going to switch gears here a little bit. We're going to talk, well, not completely switch gears, but
It was important. It was important to get into the reptiles and the history and the myth and all that before we can get into the next thing, I think.
Yeah, which is related and is still on topic. And I'm going to play a little clip to set this up for us.
I believe they may be involved in some sort of intergalactic drug cartel, perhaps affiliated with one of the interstellar wizard alliances.
Wizard alliances?
Yes, next question.
Just a thought, more of a shot in the dark, but we wouldn't happen to be invading Iran today, would we?
You got me.
I fell for it. You almost got away with that one.
No, I went too far.
Was that Stephen Greer?
Almost identical, and that came out like 10 years ago. So we have a new alien sighting, apparent alien sighting, and supposedly it's only come from one source, and it seems to be a lot like the Vegas alien sightings. I mean, even the pictures of them look very similar. They're like super blurry. They're like distorted. Like it's so anyway, a little background story on this. So in Miami and Florida over the weekend, a lot of police show up to this mall. They get a call in that some kids are playing with some fireworks and they have sticks. And there was an overreaction to this call in. I think over, don't quote me, but I think like 60 police cars show up to,
There's about 60, yeah,
to this mall. And in response to this call in about children, people were fleeing. And then someone took a video of all the police showing up to this mall and just put in the title of the video, witnesses have seen 8 to 10 foot tall creatures were spotted at the mall. And then that floats around. There was only one video that I could find at that time of that. And then it took on a life of its own. And then everyone started picking up with it. And it's really reminiscent of the Vegas story because it's almost the exact same thing. That house in Vegas was being surveilled by the military for a really long time. There was apparently a what are those containers? A chemical container that was on the property that needed to be surveilled by the military.
I didn't hear about that. Interesting.
Yeah, and then that turned into aliens being on the property and people being freaked out and scared. But there's a surveillance photo apparently of this extraterrestrial. I'll try and pull it up here while I get your thoughts on it.
I remember that story very, very vividly. I did a show on it, a couple of shows, I think maybe 2 shows on it. It's one of the first things I thought about when I heard about the Miami Mall story. And there's also a collection of other stories that I think are very relatable. There was a story back in mid-2022 about a village in Peru being harassed by 7-foot tall or 8-foot tall armored aliens, which, I find it really interesting. I don't know if this is just a recent thing. I haven't found a lot of things, I guess, in the news record about it, but I found a lot of the recent ones, like from Peru to Vegas to Miami. They're like people are now counting the inches and how tall these things are. And I don't know if that's just a trend that's developed, because I've never heard that before. Like, we've heard speculation about gray aliens, like, oh, we think they're 3 to 4 foot tall. All these news articles now are leading with like 10-foot tall aliens, 8-foot tall aliens. I don't know if that's just to give a more clear picture of what we're supposed to think that it is, or the thing is, like, I don't really agree with. I don't think the Miami Police Department has been honest. And I don't think TikTokers and YouTubers and Twitterers have any clue what they're talking about. I think it probably was something different. They said that there were like 50 people at the mall lighting fireworks off of throwing fireworks at each other and had sticks. But the police response to that looked like in the third Batman movie with Bane that Christopher Nolan made, when the police finally find Batman and they chase him down, and there's just like every cop car in Gotham is coming after Batman. That's what I thought of when I saw the mall. That's what it looked like.
Where did these kids get these sticks from? Maybe they were trying to beat up the 8-foot to 10-foot tall aliens and shooting fireworks on them. That's probably it, right?
Yeah. Another thing is, like, I always wondered, I couldn't even, unless it was like a flash mob, I couldn't even get more than like 5 people to play basketball with me after school. Where are you getting 50 kids to decide, let's all go to the mall and light fireworks and shoot them at each other? Why would you go to the mall to do that anyway? I don't know. Whatever the case is, though, I don't think the Miami Police Department's being honest, and they don't have a very good history of being up front anyway, so I don't know if I trust the Miami PD.
Well, here is the supposed picture of the 8 to 10 foot.
Crystal clear, right?
Very crystal clear right here.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
It looks like, what are those aliens called from the Alien movie?
The xenomorphs?
Xenomorphs. It looks like a xenomorph, bro.
It does.
It's got long ass arms all the way. His arms are dragging the ground, dude. Got a tail, got that weird elongated skull thing. Right here, this elongated skull, arms going. Well, I don't know if is that a long arm, or is that?
It might be another appendage. Maybe, I don't know. Or
is that the penis? That might be the penis of the aliens.
Someone needs to see where H.R. Geiger was last week.
This alien is packing, dude. Look at that.
Why are these? I understand. I mean, if you don't know something's going to happen, so you don't have your camera out recording all the time. But every picture's blurry. You'd think that you'd maybe be able to find one that wasn't blurry, but maybe that's just an assumption.
I'm trying to pull this down. Why is it not letting me pull it down?
The deep state cabal doesn't want you to pull it down to look at it.
Dang it. All right, well, that's as close in as we're getting.
Maybe you use your scroll up on your mouse, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. Good deal. There it is. It's a nice zoomed in picture of this well-endowed alien.
So what do you think this is then?
I don't know, because I saw the video from where this picture was actually screenshotted from. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, it kind of just looks like photo magic, and it might be somebody in some kind of gear, or because if they are shooting off fireworks, maybe they think that there's a bomb or something in the building, and you know how they put on those the hazmat suits and all that. It kind of looks like, because I don't think that this part right here has anything to do with the being. This seems like a tail. I think that's like a part of the sidewalk, or some bricks or something right here. So it kind of looks like a person in like a hazmat suit getting ready to walk into the mall.
Just the way that I look at it, or maybe that's not the right way to put it, because I would say the way I don't look at it is by thinking, okay, if you had just shown me this picture and you didn't give me any context, and you didn't say, look at this alien, bro, I don't know what I would think it is. Looking at it and putting it myself into that mindset, Ryder, I look at it and I think, I don't think it looks like one thing or another. I have no idea what that is.
That was just my simplest explanation, that it possibly could be right off of the rip, because you asked me. I mean, whenever they go into scenarios like that where there's explosions and stuff, it's kind of like whenever there's like a bomb threat or whatever, they take in that rover drone thing to examine whatever they think is in the bomb. Well, at least they do that on TV and on movies. I don't know if they really actually do that in real life, but I'm sure there's some cases where they've really done that, and that's what it kind of looks like.
I wasn't criticizing you for the record. All I was saying is I'm just saying, like, if I was shown that picture and nobody had told me what I'm looking at or like what to look for or the context of where it came from, I think you'd agree. Like, if you put yourself in that position for a second, like, I don't know what to make of it. I wouldn't say it's, but when you say like, oh, it's like H.R. Geiger aliens, I'm like, oh, I can see that. I can see the legs and the head. And, or if you told me it looked like something else, I could probably find, it's like pareidolia. I could find, things that look like whatever I'm being told it looks like. So if someone saw that on the internet originally, and a lot of people's minds just go right to aliens, and then you start telling people there's aliens at the mall, and then this picture spreads and everybody sees an alien because that's what they're told to look for. Kind of like with the Kenneth Arnold story as well. That's just my thought. I think we should look at it from that perspective, is all I'm saying.
What do you think it is, though, knowing the background and knowing the story and knowing that there was a supposed problem at this mall, and this is the picture that we get from outside of the mall? What do you think that it is?
It's a good question. I don't really have an answer. I don't even have like an opinion on it, except I could tell you a very brief story. I could tell you that when I heard this story, I thought, remember Stranger Things, where they had the giant base underneath of the mall? And I was reminded this has nothing to do with my background or nothing to do with my research or nothing to do with me as a radio host and a commentator. But when I went to film school, I'm from Florida. I went to film school in Orlando. And when I was in Orlando, I went to Full Sail University, and I got a part-time job to make some extra money. I was working at the bookstore at the university. And there was a lady I was working with, and she was one of multiple people that told me this. I had a minor interest in like weird things and paranormal things, but nothing like it is today. And this was before I got into radio, of course. And I remember she told me that she heard from her relative who was working at MacDill Air Force Base, which was built in the late 40s, or actually 1947, 48, I think. MacDill's huge military base in Tampa on the bay. It's a very strategic and important military base. And she said one of her family members had told her, and again, unprovoked, we were just having a talk, and she said that there's underground tunneling systems that go under MacDill Air Force Base, maybe partly under the Bay of Tampa, that they go all the way down to Miami, and then they go out into the ocean, and they go down into Cuba. And she said that's what her relative had told her. Her relative worked at the base, told her that they thought the government was using that to smuggle drugs and to smuggle all kinds of things. And she didn't go into any additional speculation, but I had other people tell me the same thing, kind of unrelated. It was kind of like a rumor there when I was growing up, that people thought that the base was connected to these underground tunnels that took you down to Miami and other parts of the state. And they had like hubs, above ground, maybe a mall, who knows? So I remember that story, and I was thinking about that. And of course you get all these stories about aliens and underground bases and tunnels, right? And they've got their deep underground military bases, and there's reptilians underground. And so anyway, that's what came into my mind.
Hey man, it could be some sort of underground base. The aliens had enough down there, and they're like, maybe it's an escaped alien story from an underground base underneath the mall in Miami.
Maybe they went up to get a Wetzel's pretzel. Who knows? Maybe
Richard Doty is right, and aliens have been escaping for years and years and years, and they just cover it up
in the mall, right into the mall.
Yeah,
right in the mall.
Right into the mall. Maybe that was their only exit. They've been planning this for freaking 50 years. They finally get it, and they get out of the deep underground military base, and there's all these people, and they're in the middle of the city, in the middle of a mall.
I was also thinking, like, I've seen the biggest police response I ever saw, Ryder, when I was living in Orlando. So actually, when I was going to film school, I lived in a really bad apartment complex, really nasty part of town. I lived there because it was cheap. I was naive. I had no context for the real world. I grew up pretty sheltered. And when I was living there, I had a roommate. And I remember one day we went out to take pictures. We were in film school. So we had a class, we took like digital photography. And his friend called him, who also lived in the apartment complex. His friend called him and said, "Hey, you guys got to get back here. They're about to close the apartment complex off." And we're like, "Close it off? What do you mean close it off?" He said there was a couple of shootings, and there's like an active gunman at the apartment complex, and the police are here, and they're gonna shut the whole area down like within a mile of the street and block everything off because there was an active shooter. And so we came back. Our apartment was right at the entrance. The police let us in. But this guy that was the shooter, they got him. He killed a woman, stabbed somebody to death. And so he killed somebody by shooting them, and then he stabbed somebody to death. And then he jumped out of like a 3-story window. I don't know if he broke his leg or something, but he like crawls off into the woods, and the police go down and get him. So this guy was like armed to the teeth. He had like a shotgun, a machine gun, all kinds of weapons. And they didn't know if there was other shooters. It was all drug related is the point. And there were probably about 15 police cars like that eventually arrived on the scene. Initially, it was only a handful. So I guess I could see that in a very serious situation, you'd get a lot of police response, but like 60, some estimates were like 100 police cars in Miami. And we're not talking about kids with guns. These are kids with fireworks and sticks. The article said sticks. So sticks. Now, I don't know if that meant like a stick outside, like a twig, or I don't know where you're getting sticks in Miami anyway. It's a concrete city, concrete jungle. So I was just thinking, if it's like an active shooter, police are told to stand down. If it's an active school shooting, police are told to stand down for an hour or two, and the police response isn't that overwhelming. The police response isn't even that overwhelming when a foreign dignitary comes to town. So that's what I think. It's out of the ordinary, perhaps. Miami's big, so they have a lot more police than, like, say, if there was a shooter in Orlando or something. So I'm just trying to look at all the angles, Ryder, is what I'm saying. And it still seems like an excessive amount of police for sticks and fireworks.
I wonder if sticks and fireworks is like a code for something else.
That's an interesting thought. I didn't think that.
Because how often do we ever hear any kind of report that says that about sticks?
Yeah.
You don't ever hear anybody on the police scanner saying, kid down the street's got a stick. It's like they're making it seem like it's a deadly weapon, that they have some sticks.
Maybe they whittled it down into some kind of spear or something. There's javelins in the mall. I thought maybe somebody had a 6-star Grand Theft Auto wanted level. Because that's what it looked like. It is Miami, and they got the video game coming out in a year, or a couple months.
They just got to put in that Grand Theft Auto cheat code, and they can get all those cops away from them pretty easily.
Maybe they'll add that to the game, Aliens at the Mall in Miami, because that's where the new game's coming out. So based in Miami.
That would probably be a $20 DLC.
Yeah. We want credit for that, by the way, from Rockstar if they put that in there. Go ahead.
That's right. You got to pay us royalties.
IP.
Franchise Bible. No, it is really interesting, and the response is very overwhelming. And I like the story of an escaped extraterrestrial from a underground base from underneath the mall, and they somehow escaped out of the facility and got away from the captors, and they're just wandering around this mall, and they're super confused because they've never been on the surface before. Who knows? I like that. It sounds fun. It's exciting. That's a real exciting story.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's going to make a lot of people online a lot of money selling bull stuff. So I was thinking, what about the security cam footage? Is there any security cam footage? I mean, the malls usually have security cams. Businesses have security cams. Is there even any footage of the kids lighting fireworks and hitting each other with twigs?
Well, that's the thing that's really interesting about this whole thing, is that everyone has claimed that there's been like zero media coverage about it. Like, if you type it in, well, the other day, whenever I was trying to find the articles and find the videos that I've seen to send to you, there was nothing about it on Google at all, period. Like, you could type it in, nothing would come up. So it was really, it originated on TikTok, and then it went over on the Twitter, and now it's like the most trending thing on Twitter at the moment. It's the Miami Mall aliens. # Miami Mall aliens.
So there's no explanation exactly, and there's no They have that I've seen no proof that there were kids lighting fireworks. That's like the official story. The unofficial story that we assume is, aliens because of what's said online. The fact is, I don't think anybody really knows, and it's weird because, I mean, all of us know, psychologically speaking, when you don't tell somebody something, it's like the forbidden fruit. Back to the fruit. That's what people want. They want the truth, so they're going to dig for it.
They're not telling us what's going on, and we think, oh, well, why isn't the media reporting on it? If the media is not reporting on it, then that means that they're covering something up. When there's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of stories that happen every single day that the media doesn't report on. The media doesn't report on every single scenario that happens, especially at a local level. They're not just going to be reporting on random things. Like sometimes they do, but there's thousands and thousands of stories that go unreported by the media every single day. So is our expectations that the media should be reporting on this event curtailed by the idea that we think that they should be reporting on it?
That's a really good point too. And the fact that, excuse me, my throat's all messed up here. You think that the Miami story would be covered because it's such a big thing, right? I'm sorry, my throat's really messed up.
Oh,
the aliens got to me.
They got you.
They don't want me to talk about this.
Those xenomorphs put their tail down your throat, bro. And
they did. It's energetically.
Yeah, only energetically in the fourth dimension.
Oh yeah, we're talking 6th dimension stuff here, Ryder.
Oh my God, that's
not 4th dimension. But yeah, the media obviously covers things that are that fit the narrative that's being pushed, right? 50 kids or 60 kids at a mall hitting each other with twigs. There's no narrative there. That's part of it for sure.
And then you take into account what if this was aliens, but not extraterrestrial aliens? What if these people that was
illegal aliens?
They sure as hell would not want to report on that, right?
That's true. Yeah. It could have been drug related, could have been some other kind of like a cartel related. It's Miami. Excuse me, could have been a lot of things that they wouldn't want to report on.
Yeah, there's so many other reasons for why they wouldn't report on it other than aliens. Though aliens is super popular nowadays, and there's definitely a narrative there, but how you spin the UFO community and the conspiracy community is by not telling them anything and letting them just run off with their own stories and their own conclusions and theories and ideas. Now for other news stories, they just push it and put it right in your face.
And that's
but
like
when it comes to metaphysical stuff, when it comes to aliens and extraterrestrials, they just let the community run with it because they know that they're completely off base all the time.
Yep. Just like Richard Doty implanting a story and then letting people go with it and create their own narrative about it. That was even in the X-Files, where the guy from Area 51 said he just creates a story and then the lone gunmen publish it and make up their own nonsense, and it covers for the military or covers for whatever the story is. I sound like RFK Jr. here. Sorry. It covers for whatever it is that's not that there has to be some military involvement or something illegally happening, but there's no incentive to cover it. And people online are going to run with their own stories. And if it is an important thing, nobody's going to find out because there's no necessity for the average person to find out what it was. And it's a good mystery. So people are going to make up their own stories and make money off of it. And who knows? I don't even have an opinion on it, honestly.
All I know, Ryan, is that it was space aliens. Space aliens, extraterrestrials, and that's a story that I'm sticking with, my friend. Everything is
money.
If I don't know what it is, then it's got to be extraterrestrials.
If that makes the money, if that's what gets the clicks. ETs, space aliens.
ET, space aliens, baby. They're coming from Alderaan. And it's interesting, too, how the narrative of where these beings are coming from has changed throughout the years. First they were from Venus, they were from Mars, and then slowly over time it started getting further and further out into the galaxy. It started getting to
That's light years away.
Yeah, that's so far away that it's just impossible to ever get there. After we discover that none of the other planets are inhabited by any other beings in
And
our
then it
solar
comes
system.
around. It comes around full circle though, because it's like local, further out, and then it's like, well, actually, interdimensional. So they're here, but they're just folding paper like this, and they're coming through the wormhole. Comes around full circle.
Yeah, like a snake eating its tail, baby.
And worm is actually the origin for dragon, so it's more like a dragon hole. Reptilians again. Boom. The German word verm, part of the root origin for dragon and lizard people.
Verm. Yeah, I heard someone talk about the other day how dinosaurs are mentioned in the Bible. They just called them dragons. I didn't know the dragons were ever mentioned in the Bible, but this dude's pointing out like several times the dragons were mentioned in the Bible. I'm like, holy shit! Maybe the dragons were dinosaurs. I don't know.
The unicorns are also mentioned in the Bible many times. I think it's like 5, 6, 7 times.
Is that a joke or is that real?
No, that's real. That's real. I could actually pull up. I have a section on it in my Occult Arcana book I wrote. Unicorns mentioned in Bible. Now, obviously, the translation is different, but there's a couple of different. 8 times.
Wow.
Number in the book of Numbers, Deuteronomy, Job, Psalm, and Isaiah. It's interesting.
One horn, one eye, flying purple people eater, bro.
That's right.
All right, brother. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time this evening. Can you let people know where to find you online?
Yeah, of course. If my voice holds out, www.thesecretteachings.info. That's the website. Full show archive. Please listen there. Get the RSS feed. Otherwise, the show airs Monday through Friday. The new show, Monday through Friday, groundzero.radio, 10 p.m. Pacific. And then it goes into that free archive at thesecretteachings.info. And you can also get my books like Occult Arcana and Garden of Hallucinations, which we talked a little bit about tonight, on the website, digital and physical copies. If you want to contact me, also rdgable@yahoo.com. That's rdgable@yahoo.com. Thank you so much, Ryder.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Really appreciate your time this evening. And the links to Ryan's information will be in the description of this video. Hope everyone enjoyed this premium episode of Raised by Giants. Please become a Ryder Rangers member on YouTube or sign up for Rokfin premium content and you can get it there. Okay, see you guys next time.